Hi and welcome back to The Books Are Everywhere. So today we have a crazy video. So yesterday I hit my Goodreads goal for the year of reading 100 books in 2021. I absolutely can't believe it. I hit this goal on the 15th of July, halfway through the 7th month of the year. I have never read 100 books in a year before. The most I've ever read was 85-ish, and that was last year. I was having conversations with myself at the start of the year wondering if I'd be able to push myself to do this in an entire year. And here we are, I have already done it. I am 47 books ahead of my goal for the year. Well, the goal for the year I think, meaning I might read 150 this year at a push, I'm not sure yet. But anyway, I thought today, Mark said to me, my boyfriend said to me, why don't you go through all the books you've read so far this year? So that is what we are going to do. This may be a long video, but I'm not going to actually talk about the books individually and what I thought of them. If you want to know my thoughts on each individual book, you can go to my monthly wrap-ups where I do talk about all of the books I've read individually and about the book. So I will link the playlist to those down below. I'm just going to give you a title and a star rating. I'm going to go through these in the order that I read them this year, month by month. So they might be in a little bit of a weird order regarding series and things, because I usually read more than one book at a time, so they might be a little bit weird order, but I'm going to tell you what I read and what I rated it. Obviously I don't own all of these books anymore, so if I don't own the book, I'll put a picture of the cover here for you. So yeah, let's get started. And at the end of this, I am going to tell you my top 5 books of the year so far as well, so stay tuned at the end for that. So in January, I read 14 books. At the time, I thought that was absolutely amazing. I was astounded with myself. But the first book I read in 2021 was Becoming the Dark Prince by Kerry Maniscalco. This is actually a novella that sits between Escaping from Houdini and Catching the Devil in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I really liked it. I rated it 4 stars. And then I read Tonight the Streets Are Ours by Leigh, which I rated 3 stars. And then I read Catrion the Devil by Kerry Maniscalco. This is the last book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and I absolutely loved it. This was my favourite book in the series, and I rated it 5 stars. So then I read Chasing the Stars by Mallory Blackmon, which I rated 2 stars. This was a real letdown for me, mainly because the relationship in it really didn't sit right with me. I felt like there was some abusive traits there, and I didn't feel like it was a good thing to provide that kind of relationship as a role model for younger readers, so I did rate that one 2 stars. And then I read the Red Queen series over the course of 4 months, the first one being in January as an audiobook, and I rated this one 4 stars. And then I read Bizarre Romance, which my boyfriend gave to me for Christmas, and this is a collection of short stories which I really enjoyed. It was very wacky, and I rated this one 4 stars. And then I read Wide Sargasso Sea, which again was gifted to me by my boyfriend Mark because he thought I would really enjoy it, because it is kind of a imagined prequel to the Jane Eyre book, which I really loved, and I rated this one 4 stars. And then I read Mooncakes, which I absolutely love. This is a graphic novel that is just so adorable, and I rated this one 5 stars. And then I read Hungry Hearts, which is an anthology of short stories that are all centred around food and in the same neighbourhood, around kind of the different restaurants that are based there. They're all slightly intertwined. I really enjoyed this and I rated it 4 stars. And then I read Georgia Peaches and Other Forbidden Fruit, which I did really enjoy. It's a sapphic love story, but it wasn't perfect. I did have a few problems with it, so I rated it 3.5 stars. And then I challenged myself to read The Priory of an Orange Tree in under a week, which I did, and I really enjoyed this one, and I rated it 4 stars. And then I read The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, which was a really cute adult romance, and I rated it 4.5 stars. So then I read Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow, which was an LGBT middle grade book, which I absolutely loved. It was kind of centred around pride, and I gave that one 4 stars. And last but not least for January, I read You Bought Me the Ocean, which is another graphic novel, and I really enjoyed this one. It is also LGBT, and I rated this one 4.5 stars. And then we enter into February, where I read 11 books, which I was quite happy with considering it is the shortest month of the year, but I didn't do quite as well as I did in January. So let's get started on the books I read in February. So starting with Kingdom of the Wicked, I actually read this from the end of January into February, but I'm going on the month that I finished the books in. I buddy read this with my friends Amy and Jo, and I did really enjoy it, and I gave it 4 stars. And then me and Alex began to buddy read the Rebel in the Sands trilogy by Elwynn Hamilton, and I really enjoyed this one. It's a kind of a fantasy set in a desert, and I gave this first one 4 stars. And then I read The Guest List by Lucy Foley, which is an adult thriller which I had mixed feelings about, and I gave that one 3.5 stars. And then I read Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. As I said, I kind of read one of these a month in lockdown on audiobook, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. Then I read Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. This was a super cute romance that reminded me of my own relationship, and I absolutely loved it for that reason, and I gave this one 5 stars. And then I read Traitor to the Throne by Elwynn Hamilton. Again, me and Alex buddy read this one, and I also gave this one 4 stars. And then I read Persuasion as part of my challenge to read a classic a month for the rest of the year, starting from February but also counting the wide Sargasso Sea in January. And I wanted these to be recommended to me by my friends, so I read Persuasion, which was again recommended to me by my boyfriend Mark, and I gave this one 4 stars. And then we have the last one in the Rebel in the Sands trilogy, which is Hero at the Fall, which I did still really enjoy, but I gave this one 3.5 stars. And then I read The Reckless Afterlife of Harriet Stoker by Lauren James. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I did still enjoy it, but it's my least favourite Lauren James book that I've read so far. And then I read the worst book I've ever read in my life, which was Twilight, Life and Death by Stephanie Meyer, and I gave this one 1 star. If you want to know more about my viewpoints on this, I will link my review down below, in which I explain why I rated it 1 star and hated it so much. And then I read Horrid by Katrina Leno, which is a horror, and I did really enjoy this, but the ending let it down a little bit, so I rated this one 4 stars. And to finish off the month of February, I squeezed in The Lives of Saints by Leigh Bardugo, which is kind of a companion to the Grishaverse, and I rated this one 4 stars. So moving on to March, I realised I should have included Twilight, Life and Death in this bit rather than February, but it's okay. We're just going to move on. But I read 16 books in March, and my reading started picking up again, partly because of Becca's book-off-a-thon, which ran over 48 hours in March, which is a big readathon, and I managed to read 8 books, which was half of what I read in the month March. So let's get started on that one. So in March I read Little Women, which is just a lovely, lovely classic. I really, really enjoyed this one, and I gave it 5 stars. And then we have King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard. I did enjoy this one more than the second book, and I rated this one 4 stars. And then I read Serious Moonlight by Jen Bennett. This was an YA romance with a little bit of mystery that I really, really enjoyed, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. I then read Red, White and Royal Blue, which I did enjoy but didn't really get the hype, and I rated that one 3.5 stars. I also read Good Wives because my copy of Little Women didn't include the second half, which is the second book, which is usually included but wasn't in mine, so I borrowed my boyfriend's copy which had both parts in it, so I read Good Wives and rated that one 4 stars. I then read A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. I read this one over literally a couple of days, and I really, really enjoyed it. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I then picked up The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This is a verse book which is absolutely beautiful. I really loved it and rated it 5 stars. I then picked up Shadow of the Batgirl, and this one is another graphic novel, and I really, really enjoyed this one too and rated it 4 stars. I then read The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender, which I really, really didn't like. It was much too whimsical for me, and I rated that one 2 stars. And going from one extreme to the other, I then picked up An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, which I had no expectations of, but actually ended up rating 5 stars and absolutely loving. I then read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I read both parts of this and rated it 4 stars. I also read the Fangirl Manga Volume 1, and I did enjoy this even though it wasn't perfect, so I rated this one 3.5 stars. And I read another graphic novel. This was the first volume of Runaways, also by Rainbow Rowell, and I did enjoy this but it wasn't perfect, so I rated it 3.5 stars as well. And then I read Wilder Girls by Rory Power. This was a feminist horror that I really enjoyed and rated it 4 stars. And last but not least for March, I also read Pride, and I really enjoyed this one. It was set in Brooklyn, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a Pride and Prejudice retelling, and I rated it 4 stars. So then we're moving on to April. I read 15 books in April, which actually I am pretty proud of, considering that is the month I went back to work in the bookshop as we started opening up again for the 3rd time in this country. So yeah, I read 15 books in April, so let's see what I read. So we started off the month with the Easter Readathon hosted by Kate by Reading Through Infinity, which I took part in and read 4 books over the Easter weekend, I believe. The first one being Peter Pan, which I found interesting but didn't really enjoy it that much and gave it 2.5 stars. I then read another classic. I read The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This is Alex's favourite book. It was recommended to me by her and I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I then read The Falling in Love montage by Kira Smith and I really liked this one. It is a sapphic romance set in Ireland with some really deep themes as well, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. I then started buddy reading the Ember in the Ashes series by Sabata here with Alex as well, and I really enjoyed the first one and I rated it 4 stars. I think this was my favourite one in all of the books. I then read The Near Witch by V. Schwab and I rated this one 4 stars. And carrying on with An Ember in the Ashes, I also read A Torch Against the Night and I did really enjoy this one as well and gave it 4 stars. And I finished up my read of the Red Queen series and read Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard and I gave this one 3.5 stars. So this series kind of just got worse as it went on, but I did really like the first book. So I then read A Reaper at the Gates by Sabata here. This is the 3rd book in the Ember in the Ashes series, and again with this one I liked every book a little bit less as we went on, but I still rated this one 3.5 stars. I then read Autobiography by Christina Lauren. This is a gay romance that I absolutely adored and I rated it 4.5 stars. So I then read A Sky Beyond the Storm, which I actually rated 4 stars, so I'm lying about the fact that I liked every book less because I rated this one slightly higher, but that was the final book in the An Ember in the Ashes series and I rated that one 4 stars. So I then read With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This was an amazing contemporary, absolutely loved it, and I rated this one 5 stars. So I then read All Boys Aren't Blue, which is a memoir, and I really enjoyed that one. I gave it 5 stars. I then started my reread of Shadow and Bone and the entire of the Grishaverse books, and I read Shadow and Bone first, of course, and I rated this one 4 stars the second time around. I then read Not So Pure and Simple, which I did enjoy but didn't feel like I was quite the right audience for, and I rated that one 3.5 stars. And then I read Siege and Storm, also by Leigh Bardugo, book 2 in the Grishaverse, and I rated this one 4 stars as well. So we're now going into the month of May, where I managed to read 14 books. So I'd say my average for the year is probably around 15 books. I don't know. It does shoot up in June though, So I read 14 books in May, starting with Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo, the 3rd book in the Grisha trilogy, and I rated this one 4 stars. I then read Anne of Green Gables, which was my classic for this month, recommended to me by my friend Harry, and I really liked this one. I rated it 4 stars. I then read Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I buddy read this one with Alex and I buddy read the rest of the Grishaverse books with her, which I really enjoyed, and I rated this one at 5 stars. This one was a reread for me, by the way. I then read The Love Curse of Melody McIntyre. I read this on an audiobook and I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars. And then I read Crooked Kingdom, also buddy read this one with Alex. This was another reread for me and I rated it 5 stars. This is my favourite Grishaverse book of all time. And then I read Don't Breathe a Word, which is a proof copy, and I did enjoy this book but it wasn't perfect, so I rated it 3.5 stars. And then I read The Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, which is the prequel to The Hunger Games following President Snow as a teenager, and I don't know what I expected from this book. I don't really know why I picked it up in the first place, but I rated this one 3 stars. And then I read King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This was also a buddy read for me with Alex and a reread, and I rated this one 4.5 stars. I then read Threadneedle by Carrie Thomas. This was a proof copy my friend Jo gave to me, and I really enjoyed this one, and I rated it 4.5 stars. I then read Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. Again, this was sent to me by the publisher for the UK release, and I really enjoyed this one. I rated it 4 stars. And to finish up my read of the Grishaverse books, I read Rule of Wolves for the first time and I rated this one 4 stars. I then read Black Beauty by Anna Sewell, and I read this on an audiobook and rated it 3.5 stars. I then read Another Proof, which was the unpopular vote by Jasper Sanchez. I really liked this one and I rated it 4.5 stars. And last but not least, for the month of May, I read The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. I read this on audio and I just found it a little bit confusing. I didn't know this was a collection of short stories and not just one complete story, and I rated this one 3.5 stars. So we are now moving on to the month of June, which, as I said, has been my best reading month ever. I think I read 24 books in June, and yeah, that just still blows my mind. So I think part of this is down to the readathon which Book Browsing Blog hosted, which was called Whatever You Want-a-thon, and I was very propelled to read more because of that. I also read 5 graphic novels, which obviously helped a little bit, but I still read a lot of full-length novels in the month as well, so let's get started with the books I read in June. So starting off with my reread of Caraval and Legendary, before reading Finale for the first time, me and Alex buddy read this series and I rated Caraval 5 stars. I then reread Heartstopper before reading the 4th volume for the first time, and I rated all of these 5 stars, no surprises there, but yeah, the first one 5 stars. I then read The Maidens, which was another proof copy. This came out on the 10th of June and I really liked this one and I rated it 4 stars. I then read Wuthering Heights on audiobook, and this one was a little bit of a disappointment for me and I rated it 3.5 stars. And as I said, I read the whole of Heartstopper, so I then read volumes 2, 3 and 4 in order over a couple of days and I rated all of these 5 stars. I then read Legendary by Stephanie Garber. Again, this one was a reread for me and I buddy read it with Alex and I rated this one 4 stars. I then read Blackout, which was an anthology by 6 different authors set in New York City in a blackout, and I really liked this one. Some stories obviously more than others, but I rated it 4 stars overall. And last but not least, for the Caraval trilogy, I read Finale. Also buddy read this one with Alex, but this was my first time reading this one and I rated it 4 stars. I then read The Terrible and Wonderful Reasons Why I Run Long Distances by Matthew Inman, which is like a comic graphic novel about running, and I really liked this one. My boyfriend just handed it to me one day and I read it and rated it 5 stars. So I then read The Railway Children on a whim. This was not my recommended book for the month, that was Wuthering Heights, so I actually messed up a little bit by reading this one in June as well, but I did really enjoy it and rated it 4.5 stars. I then read Excuse Me While I Ugly Cry by Joy Goffney. I really liked this one. It was a romance and I rated it 4.5 stars. And then I buddy read another romance, which was Honey and Issue's Guide to Fake Dating, this time a sapphic romance, which I also rated 4.5 stars. And then we have another 4.5 star read, which was Ghosts of the Cello Market by Cassandra, Clare and some other authors. And this is a chunky book that I read on audio and I really liked reading this one. I then read Show Us Who You Are by Elle McNichol, which I absolutely love this one. It's a middle grade and I rated this one 5 stars and I can't wait to read A Kind of Spark, which is also by her. I then read House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland, which was a little bit of a letdown for me and wasn't really what I wanted from this book, and I rated this one 3 stars. And next I read Slay by Brittany Morris, which I absolutely loved. This was amazing and I rated this one 5 stars. I then reread The Starlight Watchmaker and read The Deep Sea Duke by Lauren James for the first time. These are Barrington Stoke books which are dyslexia friendly and they are both really creative and wacky, and I rated both of them 4 stars. I then read another verse book, which was Punch in the Air, which is based on a true story, and this was very hard hitting, but I didn't really feel like the verse worked throughout the whole thing for me, so I rated this one 4 stars. I then read XOXO by Axio, which was a really cute romance, and I rated this one 5 stars. Next up we have Cinderella is Dead by Caitlyn Bayron. This is a Cinderella retelling with a black lesbian main character, which I really enjoyed and rated 4 stars. And last but not least, for the month of June, I read Circe by Madeline Miller, which was unfortunately not what I wanted, and I didn't enjoy this as much as I wanted to, so I rated this one 3 stars. And then we are into the month of July, which obviously we are currently still in. So far this month I have read 6 books and I'm currently reading 2, so I'm going to take you through all of those. So the first one I read in July was the Weathering With You Manga Volume 1, and I did really like this one. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely love anything Makoto Shinkai works on. And then I read A Fur Love Story by Lo-Ann Leigh, which I really enjoyed. This was also a romance and I rated it 4.5 stars. I then read The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald and I really enjoyed this and rated it 4 stars as well. And then we have All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue, which was a quirky YA fantasy magical realism book based around tarot cards, and I rated this one 4 stars. And then we have Ace of Spades by Faride BK Iyamide, and I rated this one 4.5 stars. It reminded me a lot of Slay and I really enjoyed it. And then we have the book that pushed me over my 100 book goal, which was ironically called The Last Beginning by Lauren James. This was another Lauren James book I read this year. I've read 4 so far this year and I did really enjoy this one and rated it 4 stars. And then I'm also almost done with The Furies by Katie Lowe. I reckon this one's going to be a 3.5 or maybe 4-star read, probably more like 3.5. And then we have Ghost by Dolly Alderton, which I only started last night, but I'm really enjoying this one so far. So that was all the books I've read so far this year. I'm gonna try and pick 5 of my favourites to show you now. Okay, so I found my top 5 of the year. That actually wasn't too hard to narrow down because I have been more reserved about giving 5 stars to books this year, so I didn't have too many to choose from. So of course I rated all of these 5 stars. I absolutely loved all of them, so let's go through them one by one in a kind of order of when I read them, but I can't really remember the exact dates. So the first one being Mooncakes. I read this one back in January. It is an absolutely adorable graphic novel following I think she's a teenage witch, and then her childhood friend Tam Lang, who is a werewolf, comes back into her life, and the friend is non-binary. There is a gay relationship between the main character's grandmas. I just absolutely love this book. There was so much to love about it, especially the illustrations and colours in here were so beautiful as well. So I rated this one 5 stars, of course, because I just fell in love with it. And honestly, I want to reread this all the time. I then couldn't not include Little Women in here. This one has been a big part of my life ever since I saw the movie in late 2019. Actually on New Year's Day 2020 I think I saw it with my boyfriend Mark, and I finally got around to reading this one and I just found it such a comfort read. This one, obviously, you probably already know because it is an absolute classic, follows the Little Women, who are 4 sisters, and their kind of lives, and I love them so much, especially Jo, but honestly all of them. Also, me and some of my closest friends who I work with are called Jo, Amy and Beth, and we went to see Little Women together last year, and yeah, it works perfectly. We've got a group chat called Little Women, it's great. But yeah, I read Little Women, absolutely loved it. And then we have An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. As I said, this was an utter surprise for me, but I really liked it. This is kind of set in real world New York, but it's set in a world where the main character, April May, I think she's called, finds a statue at 3 AM, and they film this statue, her and her friend, and go viral on YouTube talking about this statue in the middle of the night. And then they find out that these statues, which they name the Carls, actually appear all over the world, and things escalate from there. This was amazing, it was so quirky, it was a real page turner, and I finally have the second book, which I can't wait to read. And then we have Heartstopper Volume 4. I was this was the hardest decision in this pile. I was trying to decide between Heartstopper and Show Us Who You Are. So Show Us Who You Are, honourable mention, absolutely loved it. But I couldn't not include Heartstopper in this list. This is probably not my favourite Heartstopper volume. My favourite is Volume 3, where they go to Paris, but I did still enjoy this one. It is the hardest hitting of the volumes so far, as it follows Nick and Charlie, who are 2 teenage boys who kind of realise they like each other very early on in the Heartstopper books. And then this one is following Charlie as he goes through kind of a rough patch, but it also just makes the relationship even more real and even more beautiful, and I just love these two so much. And last but not least, we have Slay by Brittany Morris. I absolutely loved this one. This follows our main character Kira, who creates this game that is only for black people and the black community, and then following that somebody dies because of the game in real life, and she starts kind of receiving racist abuse from somebody who she doesn't know. So she starts receiving this through the game, and then realises she might actually know who they are. It is an absolute page turner, absolutely thrilling, but also has some really important topics and discussions in here, so I would highly recommend this one. So that has been all of the books I've read so far this year, including my 5 favourites. I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know how long it's going to be with all the editing, so I hope it hasn't been too long. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of these books or what your favourites are out of this list. If you did enjoy this, please give it a like and comment down below, especially if you've read any of the ones I've mentioned today. And subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this, and I'll see you next time. Bye!